A few civilian volunteers are patrolling Bastrop as the multi-state military training exercise called Jade Helm 15 continues. Those exercises are happening in Bastrop. Some people worry the training will be used as cover for a military takeover. But the Army says it's just a drill in terrain similar to foreign combat zones. The training ends in September. So is there a legitimate concern Texans' safety, constitutional rights, and civil liberties are being infringed upon, and have Americans lost trust in the government? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26for Life. Joining us live in the newsroom is our roundup panel led by our senior legal analyst Chris Tritico, our news analyst Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So this started off kind of with a whimper amid all these conspiracy theories, and we haven't really seen any big disruptions there in Central Texas.
Yeah, because there's not going to be. Look, I don't want to dump all over anybody's fears, but this is silly. The government, the Army, the military has to have exercises to stay prepared. We all want our military to be ready and prepared to go into action. And then we have a exercise to make sure that that's actually taking place, and people think the government is going to take over. It's a silly argument. The government is not taking over anything. There's no civil war. They're simply doing preparedness exercises. Jackie Bally, who's laughing. I'm sorry, isn't this silly?
Yeah. Well, I think the governor is handling it very well, because he did say just keep an eye on it, but he did come back and say, look, I've been talking to the administration. There's a simple military exercise, something that we need to do. I believe Texas is one of 6 other states that this,
it's a nationwide
that
deal.
This is happening in. So there is a mistrust. I wanted to answer one of the questions that Sally asked in her intro. There is a mistrust or distrust with Texans and the administration, and I think that's where you're seeing some of these theories. And I don't want to say that if you believe in these theories, the people are being silly, but you do see a lot of people, a lot of Texans in particular, don't really care for the administration. So anything that they have, that they hear coming from Washington, then of course they're going to start questioning. And I think the fact that the governor's looking into it is helping them.
Well, I'm going to agree with you that a healthy mistrust of government is fine. Thinking Jade Helm is the government taking over Texas is silly. I'm sorry. That's Mustafa? Jump in.
Look, we have a voluntary army. Our army, our armed forces, made up of our sons, our daughters, our husbands. It is us. That's in the military. That's why we take so much pride in it. And to think that people are profiteering, right? They're profiting by making others scared about the vulnerabilities they feel in our country is disgusting to me, because there are people that are spreading these rumors. There are people that are using, the gun manufacturers that are using the NRA to scare people about this to sell more weapons. The politicians that are profiting from this by saying something's going on. Even our governor goes out and says the National Guard should watch our military. Just think about that notion. Our National Guard is going to watch over our military.
Let me ask you about the governor.
It's unbelievable to me.
Jackie said Governor Abbott's handling this correctly. When he wrote that letter the first time, he was really answering the people who were telling him this is a takeover of the government. He said, I'm sending the Guard out to watch this. Do you think he handled that correctly in the beginning? And if not, has he recovered, and is he handling it better now?
Look, it's absolutely ludicrous to say that our National Guard of Texas is going to watch over and protect us against our own military. There are things that you do to save people, to calm their fears. This just ignites it, because it sends a message that there's something to be fearful about. I thought Senator Cornyn did a good job in the beginning by just having meetings earlier with the administration, and then releasing statements to say that, look, there's nothing to worry about. But our governor didn't do that. He didn't say there's nothing to worry about. He said, I'm going to send the National Guard to watch over our own military.
All right.
It's absurd.
Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Going to check in on Twitter first. A couple of viewers chiming in on this discussion this morning. First, we'll go to Ben. He says Jade Helm is not much different than the U.S. Army running training exercises outside El Paso. Andy, also up early with us, he says, I lost faith in my government years ago. Of late, I do not think they can defend or keep America safe. Andy is a disabled vet, and he says this disabled veteran knows there are training facilities on bases. No need to bring it into the public arena.
Well, I disagree with that because the military base in and of itself is not going to be big enough to handle and exercise the size of Jade Helm that's in, what'd you say, 6 or 7 states.
Right.
So you can't do that at Fort Hood. You just can't do an exercise that would fit what the military wants to do here.
Right, and you're also doing it on private property, and whenever you do involve private citizens, that's when you have to make it public and have public notices. So that's where a lot of this came out. And going back to the governor and the statements, the governor's not trying to please people like Mustafa, and I believe Jon Stewart was even making comments. That's not who he's trying to please. The governor is trying to please his residents of Texas. And if there's a question that comes up, of course he's going to answer it. If he didn't answer it, then he would be criticized for not doing his job then. So the fact that he said, look, we're going to look into it, there's no reason to have any fears, I'm going to continue to monitor it, I think he's doing exactly what he needed to do.
Well, I think Mustafa's concern is the original letter that he sent out, which basically said we're going to have the National Guard go protect us, words to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me. That was the initial problem, and that's what ignited the Jade Helm argument,
Well, think about it. Whenever we had the first incident at Fort Hood, the Obama administration and our president said that was a workplace incident. The administration also says our border is more secure than ever. So they think that we have all of these fears that are unwarranted, which is not true. So of course there's going to be a disconnect between the two. The fact that he said, look, we're going to have our National Guard looking out for our best interests does not mean that he's saying we're working against the military. He honors the military. He likes the military. That's been clear. The fact that our National Guard is going to protect us does not mean that they're protecting us, and that does not mean that he's saying something bad about the military.
How about that?
He's not pleasing them. He's trying to court conservative voters and their fears. He wants to say that I will protect you from your fears against your own military. This is absurd, and public officials like him and others that are profiting from preying on the fears of Americans against their own government should be ashamed of them.
Now, Jackie is right that he has since come out after that letter.
He had to, because he sounded absurd.
But he did come out later and say, this is
just a military exercise.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Jade Helm is just an exercise. There is no reason to run for the hills.
All right, final word from Chris Tritico on Jade Helm. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in our next half hour. Let's send it over to Lindsay.